Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess, and if you're new, then welcome. I would love to earn your subscription. This is our second comments and responses episode in our walkthrough of JFK Circling the Truth. Many times in the comments, you guys leave thoughts or articles or comments or responses that are worth noting and that are reflecting on the material that we've already been through. And particularly when it's correcting something or adding something to our information, I want to bring those to the light of the entire community. So we're going to walk through those comments one at a time. I have a lot to share with you actually saved up. The first one is from Gary Mason. It is a comment on Jack Ruby's chaotic movements on November 22nd. And he notes, I've always wondered how Ruby knew about the Fair Play for Cuba committee. And that is such a good observation. I actually went back into my copy of The Killing of a President by Robert Groden, and we do have this photo up here at the top. It shows Jack Ruby at the midnight press conference on November 23rd, 1963. He tells us when Oswald was brought before reporters, Police Chief Curry made reference to him as a member of the Free Cuba Committee. Jack Ruby shouted out the correct name of the organization as the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. How well did Jack Ruby know Lee Oswald? This is such a good comment because Jack Ruby, why is he wearing glasses? Why is he carrying a little notebook and a pen as if he's one of the reporters at that midnight press conference? This is the night before he murders Lee Oswald. Why was he stalking him? What was he doing? Why was he there on the police press conference? And why did he know the name of the one-member club that Lee Oswald was a part of in New Orleans, the Fair Play for Cuba Committee? Why was he aware of the name of that to such a degree that he was able to call out the correct name to the police chief? And, you know, it just makes you wonder, like, why was he there? Does he just have to show that he knows? Is he trying to get it on the record? Did he not think that anybody would connect him to the giving out of that information? It just really makes you wonder. So, great comment, Gary. Good addition. The next comment comes from Susan on who controlled LBJ. Was JFK about to fire him as vice president? She notes, if I'm not mistaken, Johnson was the primary suspect in 11 murders, including his own sisters, prior to being vice president. So an accusation of at least co-conspirator is not a leap for me. Good point, Susan. And yes, you can look it up. There are people who have compiled that list of supposed murders that Johnson was a party to. So you can look into that if you wish to. There is an article that I will bring to your attention. I don't know if this researcher says his name Tim Chetty or Tim Shooty. I'm not sure the pronunciation, but he shared this article with me. It's from the Virgin Islands Daily News. There is a link to it, I believe. If so, I will put it in the comments, but you can find it online still. It is difficult to find. He sent it to me, and he sent me a screenshot, which I then printed out. You can see it's multiple different papers. I printed out various screenshots and pasted it together so that I could have my own copy, but it's, did the police pay Jack Ruby to kill Oswald? Very interesting. It's written by Seth Cantor, who is the same author of the book that we read about Jack Ruby. And one thing that he pointed out that we both thought was interesting is that oftentimes, if there is a piece of information that is highly explosive within a nation, you see this sometimes with royal family news in the British royal family, that things that are way too explosive for the British press to print, papers outside of the Commonwealth will print those stories, and then it'll be picked up by people within the British Commonwealth so that they can talk about it. But it's almost like it's too explosive, too dynamite for them to print because they would receive too much blowback from the sources. And so it makes you wonder if that's what Seth Cantor was doing. If he is basically saying, I'm pretty sure this is what happened, but he's putting it in the Virgin Islands Daily News. Did the police pay Jack Ruby to kill Oswald? It's an interesting question. It fits together with a lot of the evidence. It's just an interesting thought that I wanted to bring to all of you. So there it is. Consider it. Let me know what you think. Add your thoughts in the comments. Corey Westmoreland said, Jess, you're triggering all my time in these rabbit holes, and I've got a snippet I'd like to share with you. I was just watching your video on Craig and the Rambler. Back a long while ago, I was deep diving into assassination footage, and I took a screenshot of this. It was in a scene of the aftermath footage. This car drove by, and there's the back of it. And Corey says, I believe this is the rear end of the Rambler. So I'll put that photo up for you guys. You guys can make your own determination, but you can still see like the Newmans are there on the ground. There's the back end of some kind of station wagon. And he notes, it seems as if she was making the circle back, waiting for the patsy she set up. Of course, the she being Ruth Payne. So interesting, very good, very fascinating. And worth more examination. This is why, you guys, there is so much footage, and even with the deep dives that people like Robert Groden have done, even with the hard work of longtime researchers, I believe there's a role for you and I to play when we have information to collect it and to share it with one another, because this is a murder that has been unsolved. The case that our government has presented is not satisfying to me or to half of Americans. We don't believe it was Lee Oswald and Lee Oswald alone. Therefore, there is still information to be found. And so this is a good lead. Do with it what you will. Rick Barrett said on the Roger Craig video also, he said, please present the information in a concise and clear way other than reading a series of monotone statements. I'm actually interested in this info and any key points, but I can't listen to it presented this way for more than 30 seconds. And I responded, it sounds like this isn't the channel for you then. Here we learn through stories and reading in a leisurely, informative way. But that's not for everyone, and that's okay. Best wishes. The reason why I share that is because, you know what? I want to maintain a humble posture here. The way we do it isn't for everybody, and that's okay. And I know that, and I want you to know that I know that. If you have friends that you think, you know, she's going through a surgery, and actually I think she'd be interested in the murder mystery aspect of the Kennedy assassination, I'm going to go ahead and give this to her while she's going through rehab or while she's laid up in bed. That would be a great thing to share with your friend. If you have a buddy that used to be interested in the Kennedy assassination, share with him. And the reason why is not just to build the channel, although I would love to do that. I would love to bring as many people who are interested together. But I do think that by collecting information, by talking about it together, one of the things that the Grodens and I have talked about is that the way that by laying out the facts together, even things like, hey, you're pronouncing that name wrong, or actually that shot is impossible because if you look, this would have been in the way. Those kinds of real feedback are possible when we open up our ideas to a group. And so by doing things like sharing that back of the Rambler, is this the back of the Rambler? Here's some footage. What it might do is set off, I hope, one of you to go, you know what? I think I've seen that footage, and then have a link. And then maybe we're able to make a new connection in the case that would help all of us verify or disprove some particular piece of evidence. So that's the value in continuing to share, not just that we all get to rehash some old case and be fascinated. That's not the goal. The goal is truth, shining light on the truth, and bringing light to dark corners of this confounding case. Umbrella Man. This man, Mark Baker, had to say, maybe your umbrella man is helping Ruth Ann and Loy Factor with the synchronization of the different shooting teams' shots. You know what? That's a good lead. Do we believe that Loy Factor was the guy? Some of us do, some of us don't. But if you believe that there were multiple shooting teams, and then you have one guy in the center of all of it, right in the kill zone, right next to the president, and he's doing this with his umbrella, provably because we have photos where it's lifted and photos where it's down, and the guy in front of him continues to hold his fist up right there. Well, then, were they synchronizing shots? Is that possible? Maybe. So good idea, Mark. This man, Steve, on the Darwin Paine video, he said, I wanted to comment on the video about Roger Craig. He said, you read in his unpublished book that when they got news about the J.D. Tippit shooting, he happened to look at his watch and it was 1:06 p.m. p.m. Oswald's landlady stated, if I remember correctly, that he left her house around 1:03. Does it seem nearly as impossible to you as it does to me that he could reach the J.D. Tippit murder site in 9/10 of a mile in 3 minutes, as it has been measured by the Warren Commission? Dare we possibly think that Lee Harvey Oswald was as innocent of the killing of Tippit as he appears to be in the JFK assassination? And I wrote, yeah, it's utterly impossible. The timing doesn't work. And it doesn't work, we just went through this in our last episode. It doesn't only not work because of the timing of Roger Craig. You don't even have to take Roger Craig into it. If you take the landlady or the housekeeper's account that he left at 1:04 and was lingering, and then you have the 1:16, but actually potentially up to 5 minutes earlier that Domingo Benavides actually got out of his car and finally started addressing the case before they called on the radio at 1:16. You don't even have to have Roger Craig's 1:06. Even if you give them the 1:16, but you account for the minutes when he remained in his truck and then finally climbed out before trying to make the call on the radio, you end up with too small of a window of time to go almost a mile, some of that in the opposite direction of what he would have been walking, and also lean on the car and have a conversation before you murder the guy. There's too much to pack into that time. So for me, it's utterly impossible. Peter Balda wrote about an old Ruth Payne video, actually. He said, I watched your YouTube video and found it fascinating. Years ago, I visited the city of Irving's Central Library, where they had a Ruth Payne exhibit. It was very interesting, as you could see an older television where they ran a video of Ruth in a black dress going over her relationship with the Oswalds. What I found interesting was that you could see a wonderfully written letter in Russian that Ruth wrote while corresponding with Marina, and Marina wrote her back in Russian. Next to each letter was a typewritten document in English depicting what was said. For someone who barely spoke Russian, Ruth, she sure could write well. Her penmanship was excellent. And as you stated, she arranged for Lee to get his job at the school book depository. And as luck would have it, Ruth Payne's house was not too far from Buell Wesley Fraser's house, who also worked there. This was very convenient. I met Buell Wesley Fraser, and he told me that he did not believe that Lee had a weapon in his bag the day that he gave Lee a ride to the school book depository on November 22nd. Thanks again for your video. Thank you, Pete. I'm really grateful that you shared that information about the Russian. I hear that again and again, that her Russian was way too good. And, even in my readings and observations, we talked about that her familiarity with deeper topics is far beyond what you actually achieve in a remedial understanding of any language. When you think back to, for us in Texas, we learned Spanish. And so if you think back to learning Spanish, you learn the word escuela for school, and you learn the words for hello and good evening, but you're not learning about how to talk about your feelings, complex marital disagreements, political things, how you feel towards a friend. None of that is what you're able to do with a remedial level. So she had quite a good quantity of Russian, and I appreciate you sharing that. This person, Gerald, wrote, Jess, just a quick comment on your Darwin Paine video. Ever so briefly, you mentioned perhaps if Kennedy would not have sustained a head wound, he may have survived. This was the question posed to Parkland doctors by Arlen Specter. The doctors stated that they thought he would have survived. As an anesthesiologist, I say this was a kill shot. The trachea of JFK was damaged by a bullet. This trauma would immediately cause laryngospasm, which closes off the airway. Once the spasm resolved, then JFK would have been breathing in blood, causing bronchospasm, so bronchial. The total time from shots fired till the endotracheal tube being inserted by Dr. Carrico was 10 minutes. This is enough time to cause death due to the lack of oxygen. Then Dr. Carrico was not familiar in how to operate a Bennett ventilator, thus causing another 5-minute delay until Dr. Perry could complete the tracheotomy. Thank you for that input. I'm glad to hear that from an anesthesiologist. That is an informed position. And I think that is something where it's like, were the doctors saying for sure his life could have been saved? No, but are they saying, was it more possible for the headshot? Obviously it would have been more possible, but whether or not it would have even succeeded, you may be very well right that it was probably done the minute you get a shot here. John writes, off subject, have you ever looked into the story of the CIA plane diverted from a DC to Colorado flight with an Air Force sergeant as the lone passenger? 1 minute after the JFK murder, it was diverted to a dirt strip in the riverbed near Dealey Plaza, picking up 2 men, one dark complected and the other an exact Oswald lookalike. The flight continued on to Roswell, where it ended. The sergeant had to take a bus to Colorado and later got assigned to Area 51. The plane had a tail insignia like shuttle planes that were servicing Vegas and Area 51. He and his wife were coerced into signing a non-disclosure agreement, etc. He goes on about and more about double Oswalds. But yes, if you have not looked into it, that is a legitimate thing to look into. It sounds credible. Both he and his wife testified that this is what happened, that it was a very odd circumstance that he was diverted. His wife confirmed that he had to get a bus or something. He got a secondary mode of travel, I think a bus from Roswell to Colorado, so that he made it home at a very different time. It's the only time in their lives when that happened. So there was a lot verified by the wife. Anyway, it is worth looking into. I have looked into it. I haven't researched it deeply. I definitely need to read more in order to speak about it with any level of insight. But it is a fascinating account, and it definitely could verify this idea of there being multiple Oswalds and that there were all sorts of hidden things going on in and around Dealey Plaza on November 22nd. This one is not from the channel. It's just from a friend of mine. She went down with her family to Dealey Plaza after we had talked about it, and she said, my dad bought this yesterday off a guy in front of the grassy knoll. It's a little booklet that I actually have here. It's called The Case for Conspiracy by Robert J. Groden. She says, my dad bought this yesterday off a guy in front of the grassy knoll. We've been reading it and really into it. I just realized who wrote it. Your friend. Cool. So very fun. Yes, Robert actually gave me several of these booklets for my kids, and they were looking through them and really examining them and have enjoyed looking at them. I like looking at it because it's a very simplified version of the information that he puts into all of his books. It's like a very concise little look at some of the key evidence so that you can familiarize yourself with the basics. So if you ever come across it, that's a great resource to have. And then I included one example of this, but I have to say there were many different people who expressed this same basic gratitude. He said, in response to the video where we explored Dealey Plaza with the Grodens, Andrew wrote, thank you for making this video. It means a lot to me. I've always wanted to visit Dealey Plaza, but never made it as life got in the way. Now I have advanced multiple sclerosis, and traveling is very difficult, and I don't live anywhere near close. I'm in Massachusetts, so my chance of ever visiting are very slim, but I have hope still. Your video is a great opportunity for me to see up close the important areas of the plaza per the assassination. Thank you again. Your work is truly appreciated. Well, thank you, Andrew, for sharing your comments. That is why I do these videos, because I know there are so many of you. There are people from Australia, people from the UK, people who are maybe elderly or have wished to visit and have never made it to Dallas. And I know that the typical plaza view is one from the Zapruder angle and then sometimes down the motorcade. But there's actually a 3D view of Dealey Plaza. It's an actual place, and it's much smaller than you think. It's very walkable. It's very crossable. It's not as big as it looks in the videos. And so that's why I made that video. If you missed it, go back and see it. This is the exact reason why I did it. So thank you guys for your comments. Thank you for engaging with the material as you have. Thank you for sharing more articles and insights. Let me know what you think about the various things of Jack Ruby and the plaza and more. Everything we talked about in this and that we've been going through in JFK Circling the Truth has been hopefully getting all of us increasingly familiar with the facts and increasingly familiar with the fact that the more that you look into this case, the more you find, you know what, was a lot more going on November 22nd than meets the eye. There's a lot more going on than they wanted us to know. And the things that they told us were not the whole truth. So I appreciate you guys digging in, engaging with additional photos, articles, questions, insights. It always teaches me. I always have things to learn, and I'm grateful to learn alongside you. So thanks for your comments. I hope you have a great day. I do want to mention, if you want to come in November to the JFK Historical Group Conference, it is going to be held November right around the 22nd. It's like both conferences fall a few days before through maybe that day or the day after. I will be speaking at the JFK Historical Group. There will be a link in the comments for that. And then also there is the Lancer Conference where I will be attending some of that. If you're interested in going to JFK Lancer, my discount code, which gets you 10% off of the conference. It's going to be a great conference. The code for that is JFK10. So if you want to use my code, it's JFK10. Both conferences will be very interesting. My understanding is that Judith Ferry Baker is going to be speaking at the JFK Historical Conference. And so if you're interested in hearing from the woman who claims that she was Lee Harvey Oswald's girlfriend in New Orleans the summer before the assassination, that she was a part of various CIA goings on during that summer and beyond, and that sort of changed the trajectory of her life. If you're interested in that, she is going to be at the conference, the JFK Historical Group Conference. And then there are going to be many personalities. There's going to be an interesting panel and other discussions at JFK Lancer. So both of them are going to have a great lineup of people that are worth hearing from and learning from and just getting your teeth into various aspects of the case. So I just want to make sure you know about those in advance and have time to plan if you wish to attend. So if you come, I'll be interested to meet you and say hello. I'll probably be with or near the Grodins. So if you find them, I'll be pretty close by. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you soon.